Hi you guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make toilet paper earrings. So they're earrings made out of paper to look like little rows of toilet paper. So that's what I'm going to show you how to make. It's a process, it's a several step process, but I'm going to show you how to make them, okay? Hang in there, I'll flip you around. Alright you guys, let me show you what you're going to need to make the earrings, okay? You're going to need some sort of toilet paper, tissue, napkins, paper towels, whatever, okay? So basically what you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of white paper. You are going to glue one side of this white paper, flip it over, and let it dry overnight. So you do want to allow the paper glued to the toilet paper, paper towel, napkin, whatever you use, you do want to allow it to dry thoroughly, okay? Once that is done, you will then have something like this. You know, it's dry, it has that dried bubbled effect. So you have this now. And I can't stress how important it is to let this completely dry. I made these like 3 days ago or more, okay? And I allowed them to thoroughly dry. Once you get that, just cut away the excess. I've already cut 3 sides. Just cut away the excess paper towel or tissue or Kleenex. Whatever you use, toilet paper, you can actually use toilet paper if you want to lay them down. And I would just, I would just lay them as close to as possible. Okay. Then, take your paper cutter. This is my favorite paper cutter. Okay. I use this paper cutter for everything. This is my second one like this. This is my original paper cutter. It is well used and it is well loved and it is still used. But the problem is my lines are disappearing and I have to go through with a ruler and a Sharpie and redraw my lines. And for demonstration purposes, I was not going to have you guys look at this one. I'm going to have you look at the second one. So, like I said, it's well used and loved, and it's still loved and used to this day. So I got this piece of paper, cardstock. You can use regular size cardstock. This is regular size paper, and this is only a 1/2 inch shorter in the width than a regular piece of cardstock or whatever. So you can use regular cardstock. I'm just using up some paper I got years ago at Tuesday mornings. So basically, you're going to put your paper in and you're going to cut it in the paper cutter, okay? I go by numbers. I don't go by measurements. Usually what I do, whenever I cut a paper bead, I will cut 2 of whatever I do. So if I was cutting this to do a regular paper bead, I cut a piece, roll the bead up and see if I like it. But I always do 2. And the reason why I always do 2 is because then I always have 2 beads to make a pair of earrings out of. But that's another story. So basically, I'm going to find my measurement. I figured that if I cut this at approximately, I believe this is 2 1/4 length. When I say length, from here to here, I get this piece, which is 2 1/2 inches long and a 1/2 inch wide. So I cut this one. So here's my 2 1/4 width. So what I will do now is stick it in the machine, find my marking, which I believe is a 1/2 inch from the cutting blade to the first line, and then I just cut my piece. So then I have basically, and it looks lopsided, basically I have a 2 1/4 inch long and a 1/2 inch wide piece, okay? So when that is done, I'm left with these little pieces, which make the inside, here's some made up, it makes the inside tube part of the toilet paper bead. So it makes the inside tube part, that little brown tube. And you don't need a lot. I mean, if you made these longer, say you cut them 2 inches, which would be a little bit shorter, that would still be fine. You know, you just want to have whatever. If you did it 3 inches, that would be fine too. It would just mean that your brown roller inside bead of the bead, the inside of the bead was just a little bit thicker, and it's okay. You know, this is just how I do it. This is just approximate measurements. Because these beads were made, the white part on these were made from some of this paper that was kind of off-white. And then I realized they were slightly off-white. So then I thought, well, I'll use copy paper, which is going to make it a little bit bigger bead, but it'll still be okay. So then what you do is you take your white paper, and I'm going to clean up the edge of my white paper. In other words, I used to use the scissors to remove that excess paper towel. Well, I want to actually clean up my edge so I have a nice crisp clean edge. Remove that excess just a little bit, see, just a little bit, so that now when I do this I have a nice clean edge for cutting, which gives me a nice clean, get rid of this one, gives me a nice clean edge on my strips. Now these are cut a 1/2 inch wide. The actual length of them are, because some people like to know actual lengths, 8.5 inches long. So you could do them down to 8 inches, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do these. But they are gonna be 8.5 inches long by a 1/2 inch wide. Okay, and when you're cutting it, cut it however you want to cut it. Draw lines and cut them by hand with scissors. Use a rotary tool, cut them with a rotary tool. Use one of those finger chopper uppers and do it with that. Cut it however you cut your paper beads, whatever you're comfortable with. This is just my favorite paper cutter. I own over a dozen different paper cutters. This is my go-to one. I don't know why I own the other ones. When I cleaned my art studio, I should have purged them, but every once in a while I have to pull out a different cutter for paper because it's a paper that's hard to cut on this or something. So that's the only reason why I didn't purge them. But, you know, but most important thing, if you're using this type of cutter, turn the napkin or the toilet paper side down. Don't do it at the top. Don't do it from the top, because if you do it from the top, the paper seems to get jammed up into the blade system here. It seems to get jammed up into this blade right here somehow. So my suggestion is turn it upside down so you have the copy paper as the top where the blade is going across. That's just my suggestion. After you have cut up your paper, you then are left with strips that are 1/2 inch by 8.5 inch. Then you want to go through and make these little dots. That perforation area on the toilet paper bead, like this. You want to make the little dots so you can see where you would tear off a square of toilet paper. So how I did that was I used this ruler. This is not my favorite ruler. I used it because there are these, I don't know if you can see them, there are these little black lines right here, and I could actually, after I marked, I want to mark, I only need 3 sections, okay? I marked it at a 1/2 inch each time. But when I went to make the dots, because you're going to make a little dot on the corner, okay? Then you're going to take your ruler and you're going to line it up, and I used these black spots right here, these black lines, to line up the edge of my cut paper, so I got a nice, it's nice and square looking. Instead of being slanted or something, it's nice and square. It's as square as it's going to be. So that way I could go with my pencil, and I used a nice sharpened pointed pencil. So I went and got some cheap pencils from the Dollar Tree, and I sharpened them up, and I found that pencil worked the best. If you use a marker of any kind, even if it's a Sharpie permanent marker, when you touch marker against any kind of tissue, it bleeds. It just, you don't get a little line. So I found using a pencil and just making little dashes gave me my lines. And you want to do this 3 times. On this bead, it's 1, 2, and then you can barely see it there depending on how you roll your bead. So you want to do it 3 times so you get 3. I was doing it 4 originally. I thought, wait a minute, I can only see 3 lines. So you want to do that. So once you get all this stuff cut up, you then can start rolling your beads. Now, I have already started rolling some of them. So I have, and these are just a tad bit bigger because of the size of the paper than the original. Just a tad. And this is why I used a light, slightly off-white paper. So hopefully these will be whiter. But these are still fine. I'm still very happy with these. So once you get once you get your paper cut, then you can start rolling your beads. You can roll them, and then you can glaze them after they dry good. And honestly, I would roll these beads and again allow 24 hours for them to dry. Because the first beads I did, I rushed the process, and I threw them away already. I had very yellow beads. Very yellow beads. I don't know if it was a chemical reaction between the glazing process and the Elmer's glue not being dried all the way. I don't know if it has to do with something in the tissue itself, because right after I did that, I watched the video and saw that when they make toilet paper, paper towels and stuff, they make it out of recycled paper, like all kinds of recycled paper, any kind of paper, and they pulverize it, and then they do some sort of like bleaching of it and they say they don't use bleach, but they use a process, a chemical, to bleach out all the colors. So I don't know if they were too wet with the glue yet when I first did the first batch, and that's why I had yellowing. I don't believe this bled, because I have not had an issue with this paper bleeding when I got it wet in the glazing process, but I don't know. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to start with your inner core paper, okay? This is cardstock. It's not thick cardstock, but it's cardstock. So I always pre-bend my cardstock end, the end that I'm going to end up with. I'll sometimes even roll it out. So I've got a pre-bended end. You can roll this on anything. I have paper bead rolling tools. You can roll this on a coffee stirrer. You can roll this on a toothpick. You can roll it on a chopstick. You can roll it on a knitting needle. You can roll your beads. Did I say toothpick? You can roll them on a bamboo skewer. You can roll them on whatever you want to roll them on. You can roll it. Somebody said the other day that they roll their beads on a empty ink, the inside of an ink pen, that empty ink thing, and then they cut a slit down the side, on one side, so they can stick their paper in it. Roll them on whatever you want to roll them on. Just remember, you want your hole big enough. You want your hole big enough so that when you go to make your earrings, if you're using chain, you can get that chain in that hole. Okay? Now, if you don't care about chain and you don't need as big a hole, and you're just going to put some decorative string, like embroidery string, because if you went to a craft store or had on hand that gold metallic-y looking embroidery string, that would be pretty, and you could just run the string through and hang them. You could use yarn. You could run yarn through that. There's a string that comes kind of in the yarn section. I think it's a I don't know what it is, but it's a friend of mine knits earrings with them, crochets little tiny earrings. I don't know what that's called, but you could use that. You could use satin cord. You can use almost anything. You could use jute. you know, but just make sure your hole is big enough. If you wanted to if you didn't worry about that hole being big enough, you could punch a little hole or drill a little hole with a Dremel tool and put a little, like, hook and eye, little eye in there and hang them from the eye. I thought the chain was pretty, so I just made sure the hole was big enough. Now, because I dipped this in PC Petrifier, I do have to go back sometimes and use a bead reamer and ream out that hole. I don't mind doing that because I dip mine on fishing line, and I know that the PC Petrifier is getting in there and hardening the inside, so I'm okay with the extra work I have to do. But just make sure your hole is big enough if you're wanting to run chain or something through. Okay, so let's get to rolling. What I do, like I said, I pre-bend that side, and then I just roll the inner bead. I guess that's what you call it, core bead. Now I got this at the Dollar Tree. I use these Elmer's glue tubes because I can refill them with any kind of school glue. I don't necessarily that does not have Elmer's glue in it right now. Right now it has a different brand of glue in it. Right now it has a crazy art glue in it. I had a bottle here a minute ago. Don't know what I did with it. So you don't have to, I refill it with this because these, I'm getting off here, these unscrew. If you leave them overnight when they're low and let all the glue drain down to the bottom, you can squeeze these, and then you can turn this on and put it in there. And if you squeeze this to start with, as you let go with the pressure, this gets sucked in and you can refill these. Now, they only last so long. I have actually wore these out, but this is my preference. I know some people will just put a little dot of glue on their work surface and use a toothpick or something, and spread it out. Now I'm putting a little bit of glue because I got to talking and didn't put this on, just to make it tacky. Now you can use any glue you want to glue this with. I just would not use a hot glue gun. So you're basically just going to roll it. Now, some people, when they roll paper beads, they will glue the whole underside. I don't do that. I don't do that. I think especially on this project, I think if you glued the whole underside, it would be wet a long time, and you don't want wet. So I'm going to glue this. Normally I glue the whole end of my bead, but I don't want to glue that last 1/4 of an inch because I want to have that flap. See that flap there? Stick out. So I'm not going to glue that last 1/4 inch. So I'm going to take my toothpick, and normally I just spread this with the tip of this, but I found that making these, I needed it really spread nicely. I just did. I needed it spread nicely. So I waste a toothpick, and I just roll it, push it off. I squeeze these two ends, and even though this is coming up a little bit, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to go back with my toothpick and hit the edge of that. So my toothpick has some glue on it. I'm going to squish that back down, and I'm just going to sit here and hold it a minute, kind of bending this piece up a little bit so I get that little flip there. But that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. I'll do another one. Pre-roll your end. I kind of like, I don't know what that technique's called. And then I just roll my bead, put some glue on it, on the end, push it out. I see right here, I got it squished out, oozed out, or whatever. That's okay. So I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to pick up this while it's still damp. I'm going to butt it up against the edge of that one I just finished, and then I'm just going to roll it. Add a little tautness to it. not a lot, so you get a nice even roll. Push it off. So you want to pinch it because that just popped out. Pinch it. See, that's one reason why I hardly ever glue my whole strip, because I can't squish, manipulate, or move the bead around if I've done that, if the glue sets fast. So, but basically that's all there's to it. Let them sit here and dry. There's no particular reason why they're on toothpicks. I don't seem to have a problem with the glue sticking to the styrofoam. I guess if I had a plastic piece of plastic here, I could set them on there and let them dry overnight. They just won't slide off this when I do this. I save all my styrofoam package, not all of it, but a lot of it, so I can do this. Now when they're all dry, I'm going to take one of these metal hooks. I said I dipped my beads on fishing line. This is 10-pound fishing line. It's the smallest, the thinnest fishing line there is. I've got a piece of, I've cut a piece, and my pinky here is in a loop, and my pinky here is in a loop. So I tied loops on the end so that I could slide the loop over here, run the other loop through the hole of the bead, hook the loop over, and now I've got a hanging bead on this so that when I go over to my dipping station, I can now dip this in the product. I can dip it in, pull it out fast, because you don't want to leave it in there and let it soak it up, because what will happen is these papers will separate. It'll start to separate, unravel, and everything. You just want to quickly kind of submerge it. Maybe put your finger in and submerge it and let it get wet. You can go back later and dip it again. I dipped these beads about 3 times in PC Petrifier. Where do you get PC Petrifier if you don't know about PC Petrifier? You can order it online. You can order it from Amazon. You're going to pay anywhere from about $50 to $100 depending on where you buy it. Originally, sometimes I would pay close to 80 bucks. You can buy it at some hardware stores. I have a local Ace Hardware, and I can get it in an 8-ounce or a 16-ounce depending on what they have on stock. One of these costs around $16 for the bottle. I don't know if it was this size or if it was a 16-ounce bottle that costs around $15 or $16. I would not use this with children, okay? I personally have never, I have sensitive skin, and I personally have never had a problem with it. But it says right on the front of the bottle, skin and eye irritant. Keep out of reach of children. See caution on back of panel. Okay, again, there's a caution label, read it. Do not allow children to use this. And be careful of your skin and eye, because I don't want nobody to watch this video and then say, well, she told me to use this. No, I'm not telling you to use this. I'm telling you this is what I use. I don't have a problem with it. I don't believe it's toxic as far as I'm concerned. My Chihuahua has eaten my beads from beginning to end. Again, it has caution, skin and eye irritant. Keep out of reach of children. So I would not use this with children. I don't know what else to tell you to dip these in or glaze these with. If you tried to use nail polish, it would probably be like putting nail polish on cotton. I don't know. You can attempt it. Mod Podge, I think, would be kind of sticky and messy. Someone else made some, and they tried to use Mod Podge, and they were sticky. If I did not use the PC Petrifier, I probably would try this. This is my research a couple years ago. I dipped beads in this Pledge Floor Care finish. I dipped some of my paper beads in there. My research found that this was a lot this was the same company that a lot of people in the 70s dipped their beads in a floor polish, and my research online led me to this. I don't remember right now off the top of my head what the name of the other product was, but in my research it led me to this product. It's clear. Again, I would be very careful. It says keep out of the reach of children and pets. So again, I would be very careful. If you do not know what something's going to do not put your fingers in it until you know. I am not promoting anybody to do this. I'm telling you how to roll a bead. I'm telling you what I glaze it in. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're making these for yourself, just roll them. Maybe get your finger a little wet. And maybe spread some Elmer's glue on them. But keep water and get your finger really wet, and maybe just coat them in some Elmer's glue. But be careful, because it is going to pull it away. I don't know what to tell you to coat them in. I don't. Maybe try some clear spray paint. Adults only, no children. So I definitely want to make that warning that I am not telling kids to do this. I am telling you how I did it. I am not telling anybody to do this. This is just how I do it. So just enjoy it. I mean, these were fun to make. I'm going to be selling them on my website, Janie's Hippie Art. I'm hoping to have them uploaded in a couple days on my website and selling them for about $10 a pair, I believe. So all I can say is, if you like my videos, like and subscribe. Artists create, so go out there and create some art. I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this. Bye.